A DVD and Blu-ray update that violates most health and safety regulations. Take 1. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5 seconds. 4, 3. Alright, hello and welcome to the first DVD and Blu-ray update of this year. Believe it or not. Yeah, I just wanted to get a decent sized pile up and I wanted to watch basically everything in it. I've watched pretty much everything here, so we've got a fair amount of Blu-rays and quite a few DVDs, so let's get started with the DVDs. So the first DVD is Alfred Hitchcock's Stage Fright. This is one of the few Hitchcock films I'd yet to get. Now, for a while, I thought this film was released on the HMV Premium Collection, but it's not. It was only released on Blu-ray last year in America on the Warner Archive Collection, so I got it on DVD. And shame this one's not on Blu-ray because the DVD transfer is not great. It's a very, very scratchy print. They could have, done a bit better. But it's a pretty good film. It's not one of Hitchcock's best films, but it's still a really quite enjoyable one. Here's the disc. Next up we've got a Doctor Who one. This was the last Doctor Who one I needed to get. And it is Debonable Snowman. I didn't pre-order this because normally the price tends to drop really quickly, when they've been released, so I thought this one would follow some pattern. It dropped, but a long time after it was released, so I guess everybody else had apparently took my idea. I've seen the story before, I've not seen the animation yet. The story is really quite good. It kind of lost me a bit during the last 2 parts, but I still enjoyed it enough. And apparently this is the last animation we're going to get for a while because funding with them, with BBC America has fallen through. So apparently I've heard somewhere that they're going to strike another deal at some point, but I'm not sure. I think the thing is, at this point, they're not really going to do that many more because the thing is, even though there's quite a few that are still, not officially available yet, a lot of the ones which aren't are like the historicals with the massive casts and wouldn't sell that well, whereas before they were mostly doing the Based on the Siege ones. But yeah, here's the actual DVD. I'm using the reversible sleeve and I put it in the correct case. My copy is still an error copy because it's got the Irish PG covering up the title, which, how the hell, who the hell was working at quality control at the BBC, to let something like that by? It's ridiculous. But yeah, I did hear somewhere that they issued a recall or something, but I don't think they have. I'm probably not going to send it back because it's quite a rare pressing, I guess. And here's the inside. So here's the first disc with the black and white animation with the surviving episode 2, which, interestingly enough, from episode 2 they actually went back to doing the vidify process because on the last 2 they didn't bother for some reason, so that's a bit daft of them, but at least they've fixed it now. Here's the second disc, which is the colour animation, and the third disc, which is the extras. And then you get the booklet with just a standard booklet and a booklet advertising crap. In case you're wondering what's in this case, this is my previous version, which was the loose cannon reconstructions. So, I popped that in here because that can be retired because there's no further use. So yeah, that was Debonable Snowman. Next up, we've got, in my opinion, a really underrated film and a really phenomenal film at that, and it is Ken Russell's The Devils with Vanessa Redgrave and Oliver Reed. Russell's greatest work, a fearsome, breathtaking masterpiece, according to Mark Kermode. Can't argue with that. Mark Kermode is one of the few professional critics I have any respect for. I mean, a guy who doesn't like The Deer Hunter demands respect. But yeah, this is an absolutely phenomenal film. Can't entirely summarise it, but I've written a fairly extensive review on Letterboxd a while ago. But yeah, it's a really, really quite... It's a very, very off-the-wall film, but a very unnerving one. It's very surreal, and has a very, very strong, and in my view, very important message on religious corruption, and I think more people need to see it. Unfortunately, this film has been basically buggered to death with censorship, and it's an absolute disgrace the way Warner Brothers, who are the company who actually owns the rights to the film, treat this film, because there's a director's cut out there, which I definitely would, if you could track down a director's cut, I definitely would recommend it. But unfortunately, this isn't the director's cut. This is the version that was shown in UK cinemas, which is the most complete version officially available, but it's not uncut. And that's the simple fact that Warner Brothers don't want to upset the religious right. You know, there's absolutely no excuse. It's just really disgraceful the way they treat this film. The BFI did try their best. In fact, they were going to put out the director's cut on Blu-ray, but Warner Brothers basically just told them, no, we want the cut version on DVD only. So, I mean, you know, it would have been really nice to have this film on Blu-ray because it would have looked really, really impressive. I mean, like, the production design is phenomenal in this film. But I'd still recommend this edition. So here we have the discs, and hello, what's this? This is a reconstruction of the director's cut I made, basically using the DVD master and the deleted scenes and put back in. Obviously I can't share this out, you know, because it's basically illegal, but yeah, this is the version which, if I'm ever going to watch this film again, this is going to be the version I'm going to watch. And here are the 2 discs, and here we have a fairly extensive booklet which goes into the history of film and the film's censorship as well. But yeah, it's an absolutely phenomenal film, and even though this is a cut version, you know, I would still highly recommend this version from the BFI. So yeah, I can't really put into words like how great this film is, but you can read my Letterboxd review if you're interested. So yeah, that was The Devils. The final DVD is a box set, and it is the Martin Scorsese collection. So this includes After Hours, Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, Who's That Knocking at My Door, and Goodfellas. I've got quite a bit of a pain in the arse sort of story about this set, because initially I was going to get After Hours. After Hours was a film I'd been intrigued about for a long time, and I'd heard good things about it. I didn't know it had a UK release. I thought it was only ever released on DVD in like the US or Australia, but no, it did get a UK release, but only in this box set. There was a brief period when a lot of individual copies were popping up on eBay, and I actually ordered one. But unfortunately, Royal Mail lost the bloody thing in the post, so that was fun. I did get a refund, and the seller was totally cool. In fact, I do feel really sorry for the seller, and I hope Royal Mail compensated them for it. But by the time I had to conclude Royal Mail, I'd lost it, and I requested the refund. All the individual copies had sold out, so I got this instead, which was quite good for me because Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore and Who's That Knocking at My Door are still only on DVD in this country. I think Who's That Knocking at My Door is on Blu-ray in America on the Warner Archive collection, but I'm not 100% sure. They are on DVD from the BFI, but there's really like no difference, like extras wise, between the BFI releases and the old Warner's releases. because this is quite an old set. This is from like 2004. And inside here we have the cases. And I've seen all the films in this set, by the way. So first one we have is After Hours with Griffin Dunn. This is an absolutely phenomenal film. A lot better than I was expecting it to be. I mean, I'd heard good things about it prior, but it really did take my breath away. It's a really, really good film. Basically, the best way to describe this is basically everything that can go wrong does go wrong for this guy. You know, he just wants to get home after meeting this girl, but basically all this crazy shit happens to him. It's a very, very dark film. In fact, it's labelled as a comedy, and it is a comedy, but it's a very, very dark comedy. It's and it actually does get really, really tense as the film progresses, like increasingly tense. In fact, this is definitely more of a thriller than a comedy. In my view, bleak films are very hit and miss. Sometimes you get like ones which I think are masterpieces, and you get ones which are just boring, depressing drivel. This is definitely not one of those films. It's such a shame this film does not have a Blu-ray release. In fact, it's such a shame The Devils doesn't have a Blu-ray release. You can get these are only on DVD, but a film like Suburban Sasquatch is out on Blu-ray, so you know, I have no idea. DVD is quite rare to come across. It's not like dead expensive, but you know, it's not that common copies pop up. Yeah, here's the back. Cheech and Chong are also in it, and late great John Hurd and Catherine O'Hara appear in it. In fact, I consider this a prequel to Home Alone of sorts. But yeah, here's the disc. And interesting fact about this film: this was going to be Tim Burton's first film. So Martin Scorsese did his own interest in the script first, but he was going to do Last Temptation of Christ, but production on Last Temptation of Christ fell through, and when Tim Burton learnt this, he passed the reins on back to Martin Scorsese, and he did Pee-wee's Big Adventure instead. And I believe this actually revitalised Martin Scorsese's love for filmmaking, and you know, without this film, a lot of his classic films like, you know, Goodfellas, Casino, Wolf of Wall Street wouldn't exist. It doesn't really have the hallmarks of a Scorsese movie, but it doesn't really matter too much because it's still a really entertaining film on its own accord, and I would definitely recommend it. Next one is Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. I've seen this film before. It's absolutely bloody dreadful. I'm going to say it right now. It's bloody awful. I really don't get the good reviews this film gets. It's depressing, it's bleak, but not in a good way. It's boring as hell. It just didn't really have a point. I just don't think it had one. It was just boring, depressing drivel. And the kid in it, oh my god, I fucking hate that little brat. You know, he's probably one of the worst kids in film. He's up there with Buzz McAllister as absolutely insufferable brats of children. You know, when Chris Christopherson in the film finally slapped him. Normally, I'm firmly against hitting kids. But when he slapped him, I was like, good. Because that kid was really pushing his luck. And if there wasn't a 4-4, I would have fucking done it. You know? And for some reason, people consider this a comedy. Or some people do. But in what universe is this a comedy? I mean, first off, it's not funny in the slightest. And secondly, it's not like, I don't know, Last American Virgin or something where it's trying to be funny but just isn't. This doesn't even feel like it's trying to be funny. It feels like it's trying to be taken seriously. But it fails as both a drama and as a comedy and was an absolute slog to get through. But yeah, here's the disc. And apparently this inspired the sitcom Alice, which... How? How did they get a spin-off series out of this? Like, and how did they even get a comedy spin-off series out of this? I don't get it. Ugh, I don't want to talk about that film anymore. Next one is Martin Scorsese's first film, Who's That Knocking at My Door? And this was also the first film to star Harvey Keitel. It's a really, really good film. Somehow this has got more mixed reviews than Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, and yet I consider this a far, far better film, a far more endearing film, and definitely really sort of good way, for Martin Scorsese to start of his career. And in fact, this is considered a prequel to Mean Streets in a way. He did this first, then he did a film called Boxcar Bertha, which I've heard is kind of hilariously bad. And I believe somebody, I can't remember who it was, told Martin Scorsese, Boxcar Bertha's shit. For your next film, we should make something similar to Who's That Knocking at My Door? But yeah, this is a very good film. Shot in black and white as well. The transfer on the DVD is not great. It's very, very sort of scrap, dirty print. But I don't know how good the BFI DVD looks. But I mean, I think this was shot on 16mm, so it's not going to look particularly great anyway. It's odd because the other 3 in here are really good. They've got really good transfers. Here's the disc. And then finally we've got Goodfellas. I'd seen this years before I got this set. This was probably the only film which was kind of a waste purchase in the set because it's easily available on Blu-ray, and I was going to get it on Blu-ray at some point, but I'm fine with the DVD. This is the nice 2-disc special edition, so at least I've got a very nice version. I'm not that big on Goodfellas like the way a lot of other people are, but I might need to watch it again, and who knows, I might think it's a masterpiece. I mean, it's happened quite a few times with me, whereas a film like I wasn't that big a fan of at first, watched it again, think it's brilliant. But yeah, can't wait to give Goodfellas a rewatch. Here are the discs. So here's disc 1, here's disc 2. It's got one of those annoying spindle things, where you have to really, really push down, to get the disc out. I hate them. This version, at least it's not the first DVD release, because from what I understand, the first DVD release was pretty fucking awful, because it was one of those awful flipper discs. And this was before they mastered the art of dual layer DVDs. So what it's got is it's got half the film on one side and the other film on the other side. So you had to flip it halfway through. And apparently I've heard stories about people who only ever watched the first half of Goodfellas and didn't realise, it was a flipper disc, and the second side of the disc was the rest of the film, because a lot of them were wondering why the hell did the film end so abruptly. This is the nice one, so it's got the entire film on the first disc, because this is on a dual layer disc, so they're able to fit the whole film in and a fair amount of extras on the first disc alone. But yeah, that was the Martin Scorsese collection. So now we move on to the Blu-rays. The first Blu-ray is George Orwell's 1984 with John Hurt and Richard Burton. I believe the premium collection has finally come to an end. I did pay full price for this because I wanted it, and I had that slight fear that it was going to go out of stock forever, and it's not that easy to get on Blu-ray. DVD's dead easy, but not the Blu-ray. But yeah, this is... I've never read the book. The book is considered a masterpiece. It's studied a lot at GCSEs and A-levels, but I never studied it. It's one of those stories where it's always referenced, for its themes, whenever people think of dystopian futures and and Big Brother, state control and the thought police, they they'd say, you know, things like, oh, it's Orwellian, it's 1984, you know, Big Brother's watching you, Room 101. There's a lot of references to the iconography, and yet I think very few people like actually know what the story's about other than its themes. But yeah, I watched this last night. It's a really good film. I don't think it's like a masterpiece or anything, but it's still a very, very good film. I've yet to read the novel for which it's based on. I've heard the novel's really good. It's a very, very bleak film in terms of like the way it's shot and so on. But it's still a very good film as well. And still very, very relevant today. You know, because, you know, considering, you know, the state the country's currently in, and, you know, that maniac, Rishi Sunak, at the moment, you know, wanting to ban strikes and so on, you know, we're not too far away from, you know, a dystopian future like 1984. Yeppam is the case. Is the Blu-ray disc. And there's the DVD. Here's some art cards. And then we have an advert for the premium collection. So this one particularly advertises Dracula AD 1972. And this one goes up to Satanic Rites of Dracula. So yeah. And then inside we have some reversible artwork. But yeah, the premium collection is coming to a close because I believe like Warner Brothers had a falling out of HMV, or I believe it's just because it's just because Warner Brothers are cheap bastards and they want to charge more money for their bloody Blu-rays. Yeah, because HMV were charging a bit too little for the premium titles. Although a lot of Warner Archive titles are, although apparently Warner Bros. Are now releasing a lot of their archive titles in the UK, finally, but they're web store exclusives. One of them I know for a fact is Pump Up the Volume, which I've got on pre-order, so you'll probably be seeing that next update. Next up is Leon the Professional, from Luc Besson, who did The Fifth Element, I think. This is a very, very good film. I'd yet to pick up on Blu-ray. I'd seen it a couple of years prior, but I'd never had a chance to pick it up. This includes the theatrical cut and the director's cut. The director's cut I've heard is really, really good. It sort of builds on the relationship, you know, between Matilda and what's his face, and Leon. I don't know why I forgot his name. It's the title of the fucking movie. But yeah, I've only ever seen the theatrical cut, and I was really impressed with the theatrical cut. And I've heard the director's cut is like a hell of a lot better, so can't wait to give that a watch. For some reason, they made a really quite big mistake right here, because on the back, it's got the stats listed. Is the fucking camera going to focus? Yeah, it's got the stats listed, and for some reason on the director's cut, it's got listed as A, B, and C, so it's region 3, and the director's cut is in the theatrical cut is region A, but not region A, region B. But it's one disc, so how the hell can you have multiple types of region coding on the same disc? And also, it says right here, resolution 4K UHD for the director's cut, so they've used the stats from the 4K disc, not the Blu-ray disc, which is a bit bizarre. And this is official, as far as I can tell. I got this in HMV, so you know, it seems very unlikely HMV will be selling bootlegs. But it's just kind of a bit amusing. Here's the disc. Next one is I've got a couple of Gene Wilder films. I'm on a bit of a Gene Wilder binge, and so I picked up An absolute childhood classic of mine. Yet to add it to the collection, and it is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. This is the original one with Gene Wilder, not that cack Tim Burton one. You know, the one with Johnny Depp in it. I know the Johnny Depp film has its fans, and I grew up with both versions, but there's no competition. This one's my favourite one, my favourite version of the story. But yeah, it's a very, very good film and still holds up surprisingly well, you know, even as an adult. You know, the thing is, this was like a childhood movie of mine. You know, a lot of people like grew up with Wizard of Oz and stuff. I never did. In fact, this was one of the few movies I actually watched, you know, that wasn't a Disney film. Yeah, I showed this to my little cousin and she really enjoyed it. I think a lot of people say is that, oh, kids aren't into old movies and stuff. But in my view, if a movie's good, then, you know, it's going to be enjoyed by, you know, every generation. I think this is definitely one of them. Surprisingly, you know, when I watched this again, you know, as an adult, I really grew to appreciate the first half. The first half definitely made me laugh quite a few times. You know, you've got, you know, with like everybody killing each other over the Wonka bars, and you know, you got Tim Brooke Taylor and his moral computer. Got this woman whose husband's been kidnapped, and you know, and then the kidnappers are holding him to a ransom of the woman's Wonka bars, and she just asks, "How long will they give me to think it over?" And you get the psychiatrist as well. Yeah, it's a very, very good film. A lot of people really dislike it just because it's different to the book. It changes stuff, but is that really a bad thing? You know, because I know Roald Dahl hated it, but the thing is, Roald Dahl was never happy with any of his adaptations. In fact, I think the only one he ever liked was the Cosgrove Hall version of the BFG. He didn't like any others because the problem with Roald Dahl is, and it's the same with a lot of authors, they really don't understand how film works, and in their view, if anything is slightly different, they will hate it. But it's clear. But when you get an author who tries to make a film adaptation of their own work, it usually doesn't work because you end up with films like Maximum Overdrive and Tough Guys Don't Dance. That the only film adaptation of a book I can think of that's, you know, actually good, done by an author, was Exorcist 3, which was written and directed by William Peter Blatty, who actually wrote the book. But yeah. And also, I find it very, very hypocritical, you know, that Dahl hated this because he wrote the screenplay to You Only Live Twice, the James Bond film, and completely ignored Ian Fleming's novel because he thought it was shit, basically. But yeah, it's still a very, very good film. I think most people have seen it. But yeah, here's the disc. Here's important notice. And also, fuck you, Grandpa Joe. I'm just going to say that. Fuck you, Grandpa Joe. Then we've got another, the second film of Gene Wilder, and it is Mel Brooks' Young Frankenstein. This also has Peter Boyle and Marty Feldman. Yeah, this is a really, really funny film. I probably would have said it was my least favourite Mel Brooks film when I first saw it, but I watched it again and it actually is my favourite one now. It's beat Blazing Saddles for me. It's so funny. Sort of a parody of the old Universal monster movies, and actually a very, very close adaptation of Mary Shelley's book. Although I believe it's closer to Son of Frankenstein. I've never seen any of the Universal or Hammer horror movies, so I don't really get a lot of the reference points, but it's still really, really enjoyable. This is how you do a spoof movie. You know, it's clear Mel Brooks is a big fan of this of these types of films, and he did a lot of research into it, and he basically made like a proper Frankenstein adaptation, but sort of played it for laughs. You know, when compared to a lot of modern spoof movies, they really just doesn't seem like they get it, or they just didn't even care about the source material. They just looked at a picture and thought, yeah, we're going to make baseless jokes about it. You know, I'm looking at you like Seltzerberg, and what's his face? Those guys who did 50 Shades of Black. But yeah, this is still a really, really phenomenal film. Really, really funny. I'd still recommend it. Here's the disc. It's black and blue because it's a reissue of Fox title and Disney cheap. Next up, we've got set 4 Blu-rays, and they are the complete set of Monty Python's Flying Circus. It took me a while to actually add Flying Circus to the collection. I've had the films for God knows how many years now, but I've never owned the TV show. Purely because it was quite difficult to get on DVD, and Network a couple of years back released the series on Blu-ray, but I still didn't go out buy them because they're hideously expensive. Like the complete series, like not even like the limited edition Norwegian Blue set, like even the standard series 1 to 4 set is like £80, and I'm sorry, that is just way too much. That's the only downside with Network. They tend to overcharge, which I just think is a bit silly. But these, with the only exception being Series 3 for some reason, these went down in price, like 10 or so pounds off, £10-15 off. So got all these for a lot cheaper than it was to get the complete series box set. I think these might be going out of print, the individual ones. Complete series is still available, so if you want to waste your money on that, then be my guest. But yeah. The thing is, with me and Flying Circus, it's quite interesting because I never actually really saw much of Monty Python's Flying Circus. Because the thing is, the DVDs were quite rare to get for a while. It wasn't repeated that often, and I think it was only a few years back they finally showed up on Netflix. I mean, I'd seen the films like years prior, and I absolutely loved the films, especially Holy Grail and Life of Brian. But when I finally got to see the TV show, it's honestly a little bit hit and miss. Some of the classic ones are absolutely hysterical, but a lot of the other sketches kind of just fall a bit flat on their arse. But it's still an influential piece of comedy and inspired a lot of comedians who kind of, in my view, did better than Monty Python. And also I kind of want to watch the series again in full, see what I make of it. I'm kind of glad I didn't get the Sony DVDs because I believe the Sony DVDs are bloody awful. The transfers were absolutely terrible, and often they were edited. This is all the episodes in here, as far as I can tell, are fully uncut. But yeah, here's Series 1. I wasn't sure whether or not to get these on DVD because it's a tape show, and the thing is, I don't normally get tape shows on Blu-ray because, don't fool yourself, they're not really going to look any better than the DVDs will because it's going to be upscaled. It's just the way they were made. But the thing with the Flying Circus Blu-rays is the write-ups were really good, for picture, whereas when compared to stuff like the write-ups for a lot of the stuff put out by the BBC, like, the classic Doctor Who range and stuff, they tend to have pretty poor write-ups, for the picture quality and so on. And also there's a lot of surviving film material for Flying Circus. In fact, it's kind of amazing how much material does survive for the series, because I believe this was during the wiping period. In fact, they were going to wipe Flying Circus, but I believe they did so well in America that the BBC didn't bother wiping them, and now the master tapes are in the possession of the Monty Python team at the moment. So, that's why you don't see like the BBC logo or any mention of the BBC on these, because the BBC don't have the rights to them anymore. But yeah, here are the discs. So disc 1, disc 2. Can't see that clearly, but you got some restoration notes and the list of the episodes. Series 2. Series 3. And then finally Series 4, which is the shortest series, only 6 episodes, so it's all contained on one disc. So yeah, that was Monty Python's Flying Circus. And then finally we've got the Herschel Gordon Lewis Feast set. Herschel Gordon Lewis is considered by many to be like the godfather of gore films, and most of these films are from the 60s, and inspired a lot of he was one of the first people to properly make sort of gore films. So I believe he started making porn films at first, then he got into like exploitation and so on. I got this on Amazon for dirt cheap. They had it massively reduced to about £21, which £21 for 14 films is just a steal, especially considering the normal price for this is about £40 to £50, so can't really refuse. But yeah, as I've said, most of these films are from the 60s, but a handful from the 70s. I'm slowly chipping my way through this set. I've seen just under half of it, but there's a lot of these I've still yet to watch, so I'll get around to those in due time. So it comes on 3 cases. There was a previous release which was a proper limited edition one, which came in a massive box with like a cookbook and a cut-out Herschel Gordon Lewis mask for some reason. This doesn't have that; it's just the normal edition. But it's fun. At least the artwork's nice. It's the same artwork as on the special edition one. So first case predominantly advertises Blood Feast. So this includes first case has in it Blood Feast, Scum of the Earth, 2000 Maniacs, and Moonshine Mountain. Here are the discs. Here we have an advert for Sailor Suit and Machine Gun, and an advert for the Arrow video channel. Here are the discs. So we have most of these. That's all these are. I've got 2 films on one disc, which I'm not a big fan of, but considering that these films are fairly short, it doesn't really matter too much. They're not the cleanest transfers, but you kind of have. That's kind of what you'd expect from these, because they are very, very scratchy, a lot of them, and in fact, some of them look pretty terrible, like Moonshine Mountain. Like Moonshine Mountain would cut between VHS footage, and I think 2000 Maniacs cut between VHS footage as well. But anyway, here we have the disc. So first off, we have Blood Feast, which is the only one I had seen before I got this set. It was a Section 1 video nasty. In fact, it's the first Section 1 video nasty I've seen. I just find it really bizarre that it was, because the thing is, it's really, really ridiculous. It's dead entertaining. Don't get me wrong, it's entertaining as hell. I would definitely recommend it. But I don't get why it was Section 1. I mean, back in 1963, this probably was extremely shocking, but by the 80s, it's pretty tame. I believe Herschel Gordon Lewis made it because he thought Psycho wasn't gory enough, which I just find amusing. But yeah, that's a very, very good Blood Feast. I definitely would recommend it. Scum of the Earth, which is the only one in black and white, and the only one that isn't a gore film, from what I understand. It's not that good, unfortunately. You can kind of tell this was when Herschel Gordon Lewis sort of was transitioning out of making pornography. I get what it was going for. It's a very, very dark sort of satire on the porn industry, but the thing is, it felt very, very hypocritical because it felt exploitative, the amount of nudity and stuff in it. So it's a film I couldn't get on with, anyway, so it's definitely not a very good film. Definitely not one I'd recommend. 2000 Maniacs, which is quite entertaining. It does have its dull moments, unfortunately. I wasn't that keen on it, but it still has its entertaining moments. Some of the kills are pretty funny, like the barrel kill and so on. Moonshine Mountain, oh god. So far, this is the worst film out of the set. It's just shit. It just doesn't have a point to it at all. It's quite boring as well, and I don't really think it had a plot. It just kind of went plodded along a bit. It's not a gore film. It's, in fact, at least some people, it's not even a horror film. I believe it's still like a musical comedy, but the musical numbers all suck. The songs in 2000 Maniacs are at least catchy. The songs in Moonshine Mountain are just awful, and it's not funny in the slightest. And yeah, it's just absolute crap. I do not recommend Moonshine Mountain in the slightest. Then we move on to Case 2. This one predominantly advertises Call Me Blood Red. I forgot to show this, but on the reversible sleeve of Case 1, it has a reversible case for 2000 Maniacs. But yeah, there's Call Me Blood Red right here. So this contains Call Me Blood Red, Something Weird, The Gruesome Twosome, and A Taste of Blood. Here are the discs. So we have Call Me Blood Red, which is the most recent one I've seen. I don't know if it's as good as Blood Feast, but it's about on the same level of Blood Feast. It's really, really entertaining. I'd definitely recommend it. There was another film, the name escapes me, which this film basically takes the plot of, or it's sort of very similar film-wise. I can't remember what that other film was. I think somebody might be able to correct me. And then we move on to the ones I haven't seen. So Something Weird, which I've heard is a very, very different, a very sort of weird sort of film. Fits with the title. And I believe this was the film that inspired them to set up the company Something Weird Video, who put out a lot of Herschel Gordon Lewis films. This set's part about Arrow, by the way. But yeah, that even if it's not a particularly good film, it does look very, very intriguing. Then we've got The Gruesome Twosome, which I've heard mixed things about, but it does look really, really entertaining. But it doesn't look entertaining enough. I mean, you can't go wrong with a film that opens with two talking polystyrene heads. You know. And then we have A Taste of Blood, which I believe is considered Herschel Gordon Lewis's best film. It's sort of him doing like his own version of a Hammer film. It's the one with vampires. Yeah, it's, from what I understand, it's very good. It's nearly 2 hours, and yet it's supposed to not feel that long. But yeah, I can't wait to check that out. And on the reversible sleeve, we've got an advert for Gruesome Twosome. And then finally, we've got the third case, which actually has 3 discs in it. So the predominant cover is Wizard of Gore. So this includes She Devils on Wheels, Just for the Hell of It, How to Make a Doll, The Wizard of Gore, This Stuff Will Kill Ya, and The Gore Girls. I've not seen these films yet either. So we've got She Devils on Wheels, which I've heard is really, really entertaining. So can't wait to give that a go. Just for the hell of it, I've seen the trailer for it, and I'm really, really not looking forward to it. Basically, just the trailer's basically these gobshites basically attacking a disabled guy and putting a baby in a dustbin. That's basically the trailer. And apparently the film is just like that. I hope it's like a cautionary tale or something where they get what they deserve at the end, but it just doesn't seem like very... It just feels very, very mean-spirited, but who knows, it might be good. But I'm not really looking forward to it. How to Make a Doll, which I've heard is terrible. The amount of half-star reviews on Letterboxd are very, very telling. I believe it's basically about this guy who basically builds a sex bot or something. You know, it's basically sort of Herschel Gordon Lewis trying to do like one of those awful sort of sex comedies, like The Confessions of Film, except this came out before The Confessions of Films. It looks terrible, but I don't know, the premise sounds vaguely interesting. I don't have any hope. Wizard of Gore, which I don't know what the general consensus is, but it looks entertaining enough. And then we have the final disc with which for some reason they put the films in the wrong order. So next one is This Stuff Will Kill Ya, which I don't really know much about either. I don't even know what the consensus is. And then we have the final film, which is The Go-Go Girls, which again I don't really know much about or what the consensus is. And on the other side we have the reversible sleeve for The Go-Go Girls. And so that is it. That is everything. Till next time. So long for now.